to drink. How does that work in sobriety? And what happens when you actually forget how to drink? Wouldn't it be a lot easier than going? Are we live? I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we are. Wouldn't it
Yep.
be a lot easier than going to meetings and going to rehabs and all this stuff just to kind of forget how to drink or forget about drinking? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about how sobriety changes your mind, how the pathways in your brain can be changed to where you really don't care about drinking anymore, and it's kind of a non issue. I remember when I first started drinking heavily back in 2011, 2012, and on, that drinking was the focal point of my entire day. I'd wake up, I'd think about how much alcohol I had in the fridge, and if I didn't have enough, I'd have to go get some more. And no matter what was in the fridge or the counter or whatever, it was gone that night. I wasn't the kind of guy that kept a bunch of wine bottles around because if I had more bottles, that meant I drank more of them. And I wasn't trying to cut back or anything. It just, if I had 3 bottles, I'd drink 3 bottles. If I had one, I'd drink one. If I had none, I'd go get some. And so, what happens when you actually forget how to drink? Now, I've been sober for about 5.5 years now. Terry has been sober around the same amount of time. And what we've found is that our life of all consuming thoughts about drinking alcohol day in and day out have completely subsided. We don't really think about it anymore, don't really care about it anymore. It's kind of a distant memory, a distant thought in the brain that doesn't haunt us anymore. And we're going to talk about how we got there, what it was like before, what the change was like, and what are the things that we did in our minds and in our life to change the way that we think about alcohol so that we could eventually forget this drink that was plaguing us. And I got to tell you that there's some things that you can do. It might not be as easy as you think up front, but there are some things you can do to start to change those because, as they always say, I don't know who they is, but as I've heard it said, if you bring your ass, your brain will follow. Which means if you go do something, your brain's going to follow. If I go work out every day, my brain's going to follow and it's going to be more healthy. If I stop drinking, bring my ass away from the bar, then my mindset is going to change as well. So we got to start with our ass. Where are we going to park it? What are we going to do? Because you can learn everything you want about sobriety here on YouTube, but that's not going to keep you sober. Information gives you options, not drinking. Action keeps you sober. So, welcome to the show today. If you're new here, thanks for joining. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell notification icon because we're here live every Thursday helping you stay sober every single day. Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Another beautiful day. Just got back from visiting my dad in Seattle. I'll probably talk a little bit about that. But Ty, congratulations, 339 days, and TW 108. That's awesome. And ICU, good to see you again. And let's see, I already, well, I just put in the comments, congrats, Richard, on your 30 days tomorrow. And Roxanne, good job on your sobriety. Good to see you. And yeah, it's a great day.
Cool. Now, what was it like for you? I remember talking lots of times with you here on the channel about your experience with drinking and how it consumed your thoughts all day, how you'd sit there and think about what to drink. And if you had something to drink, you'd think about was there enough to make it through the night, and how your life was like when you were active in addiction. Because I know what it was like for me. Why don't you share what it was like for you, and then I'll kind of share some of the similarities I had as well.
Well, for me, even before alcoholism just absolutely controlled my life, my thoughts were, I thought about alcohol a lot. Back in the days where I didn't have to be drunk 24 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, all throughout the day, I'd be like, all right, I can't wait to get home and have that drink, have that beer or wine or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly that obsession just got stronger and stronger. And I mean, I'm talking, it took, I was that way where it didn't completely consume my life for decades, although I was a pretty heavy drinker, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually it got to where it was a complete compulsion, obsession. I had to have the drink all the time. And when that started to happen, um, everything revolved around alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I did. I mean, if I was going to a party, is there going to be alcohol there? If I'm going somewhere just that has nothing to do with the party, am I gonna come off of my buzz long enough to where I'm start to get sick?
Hmm.
So, am I going to bring alcohol with me? Even when I was on long bicycle rides, do I need to bring alcohol with me? It was absolutely consuming. And I just mentioned that I went to Seattle, and I go to Seattle every about 3 months and visit my. Now it's just my dad. Well, my brother's there as well, but my main reason is to go visit my dad. He's in the later stages of his life, and I'm just trying to do what we're supposed to do. And I go up there and I hang out with him for hours. He really can't talk, or he needs a lot of help, and I'm just there for him. And I try to make him laugh here and there. And he likes to cruise around on his wheelchair, and I grab an extra one at the place and I cruise around with him. Do things like that. When I was drinking, I was doing the same thing as far as going up there, but my day would revolve around alcohol. Wake up and get that buzz going, and then go visit him for 30 minutes and leave and go drink again, and usually not go back that day. So, a 30-minute visit to do what I'm supposed to be doing and I justified it. I'm up there, I'm doing it. And I just didn't. It was all consuming. That's what my life was all about.
Hmm.
And now I've done a lot of things in sobriety, and like this trip up there and all the ones since I've been sober, I don't have those thoughts of alcohol, and I don't even have the thoughts of, man, sure would be nice to have a drink. I don't have any of those anymore. And
Hmm.
my job when I go up there is kind of to be of service to my dad, and give my brother a week off because he lives there and he deals with it every day, and and that sort of thing. That's what I do. Alcohol is not an issue for me anymore, and that's the key with sobriety for me, is not getting to the point where I don't have to fight it. I'm not worried about alcohol being around or anything like that, because it's everywhere, and you
Hmm.
really can't avoid it. So it really needs to become a non-issue. Now that doesn't mean that I don't have to take steps to keep my sobriety and to make sure that sobriety is my top priority. I do. I have to do work on a consistent basis, not a 24-hour a day, all day long, concentrating on not drinking basis, but just a consistent basis, and keep my sobriety in check, and understand that, it's one drink. That's all it takes for me to get
Hmm.
back to that insanity where it's all consuming. So that's
Absolutely.
kind of where I'm at. Lots of
Yeah, and
great
I,
comments.
I think it's interesting too because I remember I would always go to lunch because I work from home, so I don't have like colleagues or anything to go to lunch with. So I'd always just go to lunch with my notepad and come up with ideas and things. And I remember planning every lunch around when I would drink, and I'd look forward to it because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna drink outside of my house. I had already been drinking in the morning, but drinking outside the house was something I look forward to. And I remember thinking to myself, this will never end. I never pictured that life could be without consuming alcohol, without all these thoughts about alcohol. And I never thought that I could forget alcohol, right? It's kind of like when you're in a relationship and you meet someone and you're in love, and your thoughts start to change, right? Like 5 minutes ago or 5 days ago, I didn't think about this person. Now I think about them all the time. When are they going to call? What are they thinking? Why don't they come over? What's going on here? I hope they like me enough. And you're thinking about all these things, which 5 days ago you didn't even think about it because this person didn't exist. And alcohol is the same way. There was a time in your life when you didn't remember alcohol. There's a time in your life when you didn't care about alcohol. You didn't think about it. It wasn't that security that you thought it is now. And so we look at that and we're like, what do we have to do to change it? Well, what we need to do is we need to start to get back to the way things were before and keep our guard up. Because here's the deal. If you're sober for a long period of time, for me, I've been sober a little over 5 years now, and if I was to go drink, I know that would consume my thoughts, right? I know the minute I had it, it would start it up again. It's like if you're out of a relationship, you don't think about the person for years, and then all of a sudden they come back in their life and they're like, "Hey, let's try this out. Let's get back together again." You get back together again, and boom, the thoughts start instantly, and they're there and they're hammering you, and you're like, "What the hell? I was fine 5 days ago, and now I'm not. Now all these old thoughts are back." And that's kind of what happens here. And so, what we need to do is much like the person in the relationship that gets out of a relationship. And unfortunately, your relationship with alcohol is an abusive relationship. You're abusing alcohol, and alcohol's abusing you. And we look at that and we're like, okay, I'm sober for a little bit. I'm sober for 3 weeks. For me, I was able to get sober for 3 weeks before I actually was able to like really get sober. And I'd stay sober for 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, I'd be at lunch and I'd be like, man, I'm doing good. I've gone to like 15 lunches and I haven't had anything to drink. I'll get a Diet Coke and a Bud Light. And they'll be like, what the hell? Who ordered the Bud Light? That wasn't me, but it was. It's just my mind playing tricks with me. And so I'd have the Bud Light, and then I'd wake up, and I'd have my Bud Light there, and I'd be like, I'm being good. I got a Diet Coke and a Bud Light. It's not even real beer. It's Bud Light, right? There you go. And so I'd be there, and then 3 days later, I'd wake up in a drunken stupor saying, what happened? What happened? I was sober three weeks. I had my Diet Coke. I had my Bud Light. How could I be here again? Why am I here again? Why can't I quit? Why are these thoughts consuming me all day, every day? And the reason is because you've programmed your mind to think that way. If anyone drinks as much as I drank, or as much as Terry drinks, or I'd venture to say as much as you drink, you're going to think about it all the time. If you do anything that much, you're going to think about it all the time. Like if you exercise 50 times a day, like people who are obsessed with exercise, you're going to think about that, right? You're going to be like that guy who comes into the room and he's stretching and flexing his muscles, and you're like that. So I think about it all the time. And what happens is your mind feeds on what you give it. Whatever you put into your mind is what you're going to get out. And so if I sit there and I watch TV shows or the news, right, they've actually done studies where people watch the news and they become completely different people, right? You're like, what happened to Dad? He was watching the news and now he's like, I hate these people, or I hate that people, or everything needs to change, or the world's going to hell in the old handbasket. And your thoughts start to change. And it's something subtle as the news. You don't think it's happening. You don't think your thoughts are changing. Why? Because they're changing live. They're changing right now in front of you. And you don't think your thoughts change when you have a little bit of alcohol. You just like alcohol. You just like to drink. What the hell's the matter with that? Then it starts to change a little bit more, and now you have to have alcohol. And now you're thinking about it all the time, and it's at the forefront of your mind. And the reason is because you keep putting it there. Every drink, every thought about, oh, I wish I had a drink, all this stuff is programming your mind to remember alcohol. Now, unfortunately, what we have in our mind is what's called a built-in forgetter. Almost forgot that there was a built-in forgetter. And the built-in forgetter, unfortunately, doesn't forget alcohol. It forgets the bad effects of alcohol. Like the bad relationship. You got the person in the bad relationship, and they've been good for a year. They're like, I haven't seen the person in a year. He used to belittle me and make fun of me and wouldn't let me go outside, and, he'd be real mean to me. And then a year goes by, and they're like, man, I got my old self back. I'm feeling good. Guy comes in the picture again. Oh, let's give it a try. You don't understand. I'm different now. I'm not going to take that shit anymore. You don't get it. I'm not going to take it. And then a week goes by, and a month goes by, and you're right back where you were, sometimes even worse. Why? Because your brain never forgot the bad stuff, or your brain did forget the bad stuff. It only remembered the good. It says, remember that time we went and we were on the Ferris wheel and we held hands and walked on the beach and everything was so good? It doesn't say, remember that time you were curled up in the shower crying about what that person did to you? Remember that time you were waking up in the morning, guilty as hell, feeling like shit, having to drink? It doesn't tell you that that's what alcohol does to you. But over time, you can change your mind. And Terry and I are living proof that over time you can change your mind. And we didn't believe it. Like, I'm the self-help guy. I like reading self-help books. I loved listening to all these self-help talks. But for some reason, that stuff wouldn't work for me. Why wouldn't it work for me? The reason is because when you fight alcohol with willpower, you're fighting alcohol, or you're fighting your willpower with an alcoholic brain. And it's not going to work. Right? It's like trying to make your it'd be like that person going to couples counseling, right? You're in an abusive relationship. Oh, well, what we need to do? I need to figure out how I respond to the abuse. That's the key. No, the key is get the hell out of there, change your mindset, and 5 years later, you'll be like, what the hell was I thinking? What was I thinking? Now, what we want to do is we want to talk to you about some of the things that we did. We could talk about all what it's like and everything, but let's talk about what we did to change our mindset. For me, when I got sober, I had to stay away from alcohol for at least 30 days. So I went to rehab, right? I went to rehab, and some people can't afford rehab. Some people can, insurance, all that stuff. If you think you need to go, figure it out. Also, check in with a doctor. Me and Terry are not doctors. But some of the things that I did is I went to rehab because I couldn't string together 2 days at that point. I was just stuck in a rut, right? Couldn't stay sober. So I went to I went to rehab and I learned what alcohol was doing to me. I was like, okay, I got this knowledge. Good. I understand it. You know what? This is what it's doing to my brain. This is going to continue on. I realize that I can't kick this habit. I can't kick this addiction. No way, no how. Not in and of my own willpower. I can't do it. And so I put myself on guard and I'm like, okay, now I got this stuff that I learned from rehab. And I get out of the car, out of rehab, and it's like one of those movies where you just see things big. And I'm driving home and I'm like, whoa, there's a bar. Oh, hey, there's a place you can get alcohol. Oh, hey, check it out. I remember I used to drink there. Oh, hey, you know what? What about that? And I remember the taste and the smell and the idea and the way it made me feel. And this is after being sober 30 days. It was still there. It was forefront of my mind pretty much all day, every day. But I said, you know what? I don't care. I need to stop this, so I'm going to do something every day. And what did I do? I didn't go to the bar. When I saw one, I'd be like, I'm not going to stop there. I know what that's about. Not going back. And then when I'd see a drink, nope, not going to do it. Not going to have it. Not because I can't, because I sure as hell can. Every alcoholic can drink. Y'all can, right? There you go. If you have an ID that says you're 21 in the United States of America, you could drink. Congratulations. But I found that I no longer wanted to because I chose to keep those thoughts in the forefront. I went insane. I was in an insane asylum. Do I want another glass of insanity? Is that what I want? Right? Is that really worth it? Um, I almost lost everything. Right? A lot of people don't know, but I would be financially set. My kids would be financially set. We'd be real good if I never started drinking. Right? It'd be real good. Um, Life, depression, thoughts. I remembered those things. I remembered what it was like to be in the pit of despair, purgatory as they call it, where you're constantly thinking about what happened when you drank. OCD thoughts, obsession, compulsion. And I remembered those. And I put those at the forefront. And I said, you know what? If I have a built-in forgetter, I'm going to forget that forgetter and I'm going to teach it what I remember. I'm going to teach it what it's like really. Right? So if you're in the relationship, it'd be the same thing as if you were going through being like, oh, he's so cute. She's so pretty. No, 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 no. Screw that. It might be, but remember that time they did this? Remember what you felt like when they did this? Remember when this happened? Yeah, let's remember that. And now I don't go back because I can't. I don't go back because I don't want to. And over time, this is going to change your thought life. And now if you do this for 6 months, the guy or girl comes in the picture and you're like, yeah, you don't look so cute anymore. Yeah, you kind of look like an ass. You know what? How you doing? I hope life's good, but I got to go over here. And that's where we want to get with alcohol, where we're like, you know what? Yeah, you might look good and everything. I've seen the commercials, but, the pretty people on the commercials and the football games that you win, I don't think any football player ever won a football game drunk. Pretty sure that's not a thing. I'm pretty sure that all the things the commercial promised me didn't happen. I'm pretty sure I just drank at home alone and felt miserable and obsessed over alcohol day in and day out. And I'm going to remember that. So the key to forgetting alcohol is remembering the bad effects alcohol did in your life. Remember what it felt like. Remember your last hangover. Remember what it felt like. And say, you know what, alcohol? Fuck off. I don't need you anymore. And if you do that every day, and see, here's the thing. The key is you don't have the willpower to stay sober for the rest of your life. You don't. I don't. Terry doesn't. But you do have the willpower to not pick up the next drink. That you do have. Right? You could say, no, I'm not going to do it. And in the beginning, it'll be hard. But over time, when you program your mind, you put new thoughts in. One of the things I did is I listened to talks every day. Every day, still to this day, I listen to a talk or an audiobook. Something good, something uplifting, something that makes me think about life, makes me think different than I used to think. And I start to change it over time.
Right on. Hey, Tony, good job on 30 days sober and traveling 26 days. Pretnick, 29 days. Congratulations, everybody. Looks like we have a lot of people with like a year or less on here today, and that's awesome. And it's hard to forget to drink alcohol in that early sobriety. What it was for me. Marcus just talked about a bunch of the tools that he uses, and a major one for him is the talks. And when I was in that early sobriety, um, I I just, well, the first thing, and it's my favorite statement of all time, really, is sobriety has to be the most important thing in my life without exception. Because I may think something else in my life, like my home or my job or whatever, family or whatever is more important. But if I'm not sober, I'm going to lose all that. I may even lose my life. I almost did. I got sober in just about the same time as Marcus did in that same rehab. And I learned a lot too, but I did not. I played the game. I did all I as far as what they said that I was supposed to do. I lied to them and told them I had a good game plan when I got out. When I got out, I started drinking, and I drank really heavily, and then it almost took my life. And that time when I got sober, I put sobriety as that top priority, and I had to have those a lot of those tools to help me get into the mindset of alcohol not being an issue. It was an issue when I got out. I wasn't sure what would trigger me. I had no idea. So I did everything. I went to lots of meetings. I went to hospital support groups. I started hanging out with other sober alcoholics. There was a comment earlier, and I think you've commented quite a bit so far. You haven't in the last few minutes, but um, Gurpreet, Gurpreet, I believe. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Said, "Hi guys, any advice on how to handle living in a city that revolves around drinking and nightlife? For that reason, all my friends drink, so it seems that when I choose not to drink, my friends are MIA." And I dealt with that too. Um, I live near San Francisco. That's a big time drinking town. I would venture to say that every town is a big drinking town if you're hanging out with the people that drink. And yeah, I know what you're saying. I had to, especially in that early sobriety, I had to give up those friends, and I didn't give them up like saying you're fired. I just stopped hanging out with them. I didn't say I'm not going to hang out with you ever again. It was just kind of I need to work on sobriety, and that might be one of those triggers going out with them that might get me drinking again. So I started to hang out with sober people, and that's really those are the friends I hang out with now. I still have those pretty much all those friends that I would drink with, except for the ones that all they do is hang out in bars because I don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of great friends. My drinking friends are good people. The sober people I hang out with are good people. It's all good. A lot of those drinking friends, I do other things with them, like I hike and stuff like that. And I think you were asking advice on how to handle living in the city, and somebody said workout, and you say you've tried that, and um, figure out what you like to do in your spare time and start doing it. A lot of what I did, I wasn't sure what I liked to do other than ride a bicycle and walk my dog. I wasn't physically able to do much of that, but I started walking the dog, and I really concentrated on rest because I was physically very ill when I got sober. But I also concentrated on things like that I like to do: walk the dog, maybe do a little bit in the garden or something like that, and just take it easy. And that was huge. And doing what the sober people suggest that I do towards sobriety, that helped me a lot. It got me into the habit. So the habit of sobriety and taking sober actions, and the habit of not doing things that are going to take me towards that drink. And that was important. That I had to change to get me to change that mindset. I had to do these things that became a habit that became the way I live now, and that was important. And so that's kind of what I did in that early sobriety. And nowadays, I don't think about the alcohol. I don't think about the doing the sober things. It's just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Work towards sobriety. Work on not even working on the sobriety. It's what I do. Help other recovering alcoholics. Maybe help people that are active in their alcoholism. Try and get them on the road, or it's really hard to get somebody on the road to recovery, but try to help them if they want the help
Hmm.
and things like that. So yeah, it's not too difficult nowadays. But like I said earlier, you gotta just stay focused on sober actions and not putting yourself in those dangerous situations.
Hmm.
When when I go to Seattle, I don't go into those bars. I go down to the park at the on Puget Sound and do a walk.
Hmm.
Um, and one thing, I'm in the catering business, so I work in a lot of these bars where there's drinking constantly. Capri, you were talking about everybody drinks there, and I would challenge that definitely because I work with a bunch of people that live in San Francisco, and a bunch of them don't drink at all. Some are recovering, some just alcohol is never in their life, and they never started drinking, and it's there. It's just you have to find it.
Absolutely. And I think the key is just taking it slow and beginning,
Yeah,
right? Don't try to solve your sobriety problems all. Everyone, a lot of people, when they get sober, they're like, okay, I'm going to solve all these issues. I'm going to do all this stuff. And sometimes you just need to chill and just learn to be sober for a few months, you know, and really focus on it and learn to live a new way of life. And what's going to happen is it's known as exposure therapy. If you have anxiety or trauma or something like that, what happens is the therapist is like, okay, well, where do you get anxiety? Or where you get this trauma. And you'd be like, oh, well, you know what, when I go to the park or a school or when I go to church or whatever. And if you get the anxiety there, they say, well, what I want you to do is I want you to go there and I want you to not fight your anxiety or your stress. And I want you to just sit there till it goes down by half, right? And you're sitting there and you're all nervous and everything. And eventually it'll go down by half. And then you leave and then you come back and you do it again. And hopefully the next time you do it, it's already down by half. And then you're going down even more. And what you're going to learn is that over time, you're going to train your brain that you don't need alcohol. You don't need to think about alcohol. It's not a big issue. And in your life, it will become not a big issue. Now, sobriety can be a big issue because it's a new way of life, but alcohol doesn't have to be the issue that it was before. Alcohol doesn't need to consume your thoughts the way it was before. We just look at it and we focus. And we're like, okay, what am I going to do today? Right? You wake up in the morning and you say, what am I going to do today? You wake up, you might have that thought, where am I going to get booze? Well, what am I going to do today instead? Where am I not going to get booze? Well, I'm not going to get booze at, this place, or I'm not going to get booze at an AA meeting if that's your thing, or a church, Um, and you look at it, unless you go to the churches where they do communion, but I don't know if you're tempted to have too much communion. I don't know if that's a thing, but I guess it could be, right? And you look at it and you say, okay, what am I going to do to stay sober today? What am I going to do today? I'm going to wake up. I'm going to do the work I need to do, and if I get a stressful day, I know I can talk to people. I know I could do something other than drinking because I'd never had a stressful day that was made better by drinking. And I always woke up the next day and I'm like, well, that sucked. Better drink again today because now everything sucks, right? And we got to really, really look at it and focus on what we're going to do. Tony,
right.
good to have you here. Glad you're listening to us.
I
Awesome.
wanted to say, who was it back up here? Somebody has 7 days. That's awesome. Where are you? There you are, Alan. Awesome. 7 days. That's tough, man. That first week can be tough. Sometimes some people are 7 days, no big deal. But good job, man. Yeah. And you said you have flashes of thinking of drinking today, and it would be a fifth of vodka straight. But thankfully, I've not buckled. What do you do when the thought it hits? Um, well, we talk about taking that 15 minutes and doing something else where you don't have to drink for anything. Just pause,
Hmm.
try and do something else, get yourself busy, and there you go. That's what I did in that early sobriety is do something else. And the main thing is I did not go to the liquor store and get that bottle of vodka because that's what I do in before that when I was in the active drinking phase.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Absolutely. Shane, good to see you here, buddy. All right. Jimmy says, hi from the UK. I had my last alcoholic drink September 1st last year. Good. Well, congrats on about 100 days now. I think if my math is correct. I don't know. My brain's kind of out of it, but
It's a pretty
Like
quick
maybe
addition. Good
110.
job.
All right, guys. So, any questions about reprogramming your mind, um, looking at how to stay sober, forgetting about alcohol? Let us know. We got like 25 minutes for Q&A if you want to do that. Also, if you do want to support the work we're doing and get a bunch of talks, like I said, one of the things in my sobriety that's very important is having talks available, and things to read and good stuff. What I like to do is I like to listen to stuff. And if you're like that, you could support the channel, get a bunch of audios, get a bunch of PDFs, get a copy of my book when it comes out, which is going to come out pretty shortly. I just got a couple of chapters I got to finish. Then you can go over to talksober.com, click on support the show. I think the button says support the show or something like that. And for less than the price of a cheap beer a day, you could actually be supporting the work we're doing. Our goal this year is to reach a lot more alcoholics and really help get the message out about, hey, this is what's going on with you. Because when Terry and I got sober, there was no real education about it. It was like, yeah, dumb alcoholic, you need to quit drinking. That's about all the advice I got. It's like, yeah, quit drinking. And I'm like, yeah, if it was that easy, I probably would. Um, but I found that it wasn't easy, and I had to learn some things, and I had to understand it. And so when I went through rehab, I took extensive notes. We have those for you in the members area as well. So you can go to talksober.com, click the button, support the show, cancel whenever you want. It's a monthly thing, but you can just say cancel, and we'll cancel you out. And you can help the work and get the good stuff. All right. Any
Right.
questions popping in there?
Well, just one more thing Preet said is sometimes I miss the experience of hanging out with friends, but with each time I'm starting to realize how bad it is, for me and how much it holds me back in my life. And it's you're that's I felt the same way. I missed hanging out with those drinking friends. I just want you to understand you're not alone. I miss those friends a lot. But like I said, you can hang out with them in different situations. Doesn't have to be at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. And I have a lot of those friends now. In fact, a couple of them are helping me with some real estate stuff. So, and I go on hikes, and one of them helps me cater. So yeah, it's great.
Cool. X Morange says, "Dear guys, I'm at the beginning of third sober month, but I'm facing big seductive thoughts about drinking these days. I have a lot of anxiety and subconscious thinking that to drink some beer could be a solution. It could be a solution. That absolutely can be. But think it through. How does that solution play out for you? How does it work? Because I'd venture to say that all the anxiety you have, or most of it, is probably caused by drinking. And it's caused by not having your drink because that's what you used for so many years. So you could go through and you could start to change the way you think about this by simply saying, you know what, I might have seductive thoughts. Maybe alcohol might be an option, but it's not the best option for me right now because the very fact that I'm thinking about it and kind of messed up right now thinking about it is the very fact that I don't need it. Right? It's like that person that goes back to the abusive relationship. It's like, is that a solution? Well, I'm lonely. Okay, yeah, that could be a solution. Well, I liked hanging around with that person. Okay, that could be a solution. But what about when they beat you or berated you or talked down to you? What about what they made you feel? Right? And the very reason you're probably looking to go back is because they did so much damage to your self esteem that you think that's the option. Alcohol does the same thing. It does so much damage to your self esteem, to your anxiety, to your self worth, to your obsessive thinking. And you don't even realize it. And you're like, well, that's the only solution. No, that's the solution provided by the problem itself. And so if we rewind and we're like, let's rewind a couple years, what was it like before? Before I didn't think about alcohol all the time. Before I didn't have all this anxiety. Before I didn't think alcohol was seductive. I was like, whatever, take it or leave it. Who cares? But now you're in the grips. And the only way to get out of the grips is to get out of the grips completely and say that's not an option. I mean, sure, it could be a solution to anxiety. Yeah, it could help. But it's a temporary solution with long-term damage, long-term effects. And you're still feeling the long-term effects, which is why you feel like you need alcohol in the first place. So tell the alcohol, hey, you know what, buddy? Shut up. You're good. You can go over there. I remember our last dance, and it sucked. So I'm going to do this. Even if I have to muscle through a little bit of anxiety, that's going to be okay. And I also find the 15-minute rule helpful. The alcohol comes in your thoughts and you get anxious, and sometimes it provides anxiety just because of it. I remember my brother was addicted to opiates for years, and he had a car accident where he had a back pain, and for years on opiates. Oh, my back hurts, back hurts, back hurts. He quit doing the opiates, quit drinking. All of a sudden, his back pain wasn't as bad as he made it out to be. His brain was manufacturing back pain because he wanted opiates. Your brain might be manufacturing anxiety because you want alcohol. And the best thing to do is say, you know what, you can manufacture whatever the hell you want. I'm not going to give you more alcohol because that's just feeding into the problem. And instead of being the problem, I'm going to be the solution. And I can say, you know what, I can make it through. And I know you can because one, you've made it through for 3 months. And two, sometimes in life and situations, we really can't drink. Even as alcoholics, where, like for me, I remember I went to jury duty plastered one time. Luckily, they didn't call on me because everyone, I would have been guilty. I'd be like, guilty, 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 guilty. You know, give that guy, hang him. We don't hang people anymore. Okay, I better go get some more booze, right? And I remember that. But there are some certain circumstances you can't go drinking. Let's say you're going to have a surgery. You can't drink. I mean, probably not going to. Other things where you cannot drink. And I know you can make it through those without the anxiety. Why is that different than things that you can drink? And the reason is it's all mindset. And so we look at it, we're like, you know what? I'm not going to give in to the mindset. I'm not going to keep tweaking my mind with alcohol, and I'm going to stay away from it because I know what it does to me. Other people, they might be fine. Would beer taste good? Yeah, probably. Maybe not after all these years. I don't know if it would or not. But would it? Who cares? There's plenty of other things to taste, right? And if you're totally bent on it, you can get mocktails or whatever they make. Some people like that. Some people do good with it. Some people don't. You have to decide for yourself. But I would say for the first couple years, don't touch anything. Say, you know what? I'm not going to remind myself. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to do anything. We'll revisit this later. I don't need to commit to anything the rest of my life, but right now, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
So I hope you like my really long answer to a short question.
Well, I'm going to keep answering it.
There we go.
no, no, but this is, you have a really legitimate point as far as um, your name is Marcin. I see that there, Marcin. I understand the struggle after 2 months, your first third sober month. But well, one thing is they've found that after a person stops drinking a heavy alcoholic, it takes a long time to for the body to heal itself. So that obsession is going to keep going. And I'm talking a long time, like it can be a year, it can be longer. Now the alcohol's out of your system, but the obsession can still be there. Even one of the writers of the big book, Dr. Bob, he talked about how he was craving for 2 years after he stopped drinking. And so that it happens, and it's common. And after 2 months, that's not very long. I did not have cravings when I first got sober, but I do understand the anxiety issue. Marcus, he talks about in some of his talks how his anxiety was through the roof the minute he got sober. I wasn't. I was relieved. I was like, the anxiety is gone and life is good. And I had a really simple life. But right at about that 2 month mark, I started to think about all this stuff that I had to do to get my life back because I was still in this. I want to do this. I want to have the bigger house. I need to make $1 million a year because I'm sober now and I'll be able to do that. And it wasn't happening. So I started to get all this anxiety and then all the damage that I had incurred in my drinking was catching up to me, and the anxiety was horrible. And your next comment below that, you talk about how not to be so nervous and get rid of the obsessive thinking, and that's where the serenity prayer comes. And if you really think about it, and the second and third part of the serenity prayer is just basically, I'm only going to deal with what I have control over. I'm not going to deal with the things I don't have control over. I'm going to try not to obsess about them. It's hard not to because these things may affect you or not, but you can't do anything about it. So the way I look at, and that's the way I look at things now, is if I don't have control over something, I'll deal with it when it comes up, and then I can do something about it. So for today, for right now, I'm going to try to do the things I can. And okay, so maybe my list of things I need to do is super long and I can't get it done. I can't get it done today. I can't get it done in a week. Well, I pick something. Maybe I pick something that's super high priority to deal with, or maybe I pick something that's easy to take care of so that there's one more thing off of that list of that's causing anxiety. But that's just kind of what I do. And that when I am only having to deal with the things I have control over that I can take care of, my list gets cut in way more than half. It's a much smaller list than that obsession of and the anxiety. For me, it just lessens. And then I also look back, and that's where gratitude comes in, is I look back on what I did accomplish, what I do yesterday. Oh my God, I got this and this and this done. I don't think about what I didn't get done. I'm like, oh, I got these things done. This person I've apologized to, we actually shook hands. I can't believe it. Can't believe after all these years I screwed them over or they screwed me over. We shook hands. It's all good. I can see them at the store and say hi instead of duck down the aisle. Things like that that's what helps me in those nervousness and anxiety and obsessive thinking. It still happens.
Mhm.
And sometimes in that case, I just have to deal with it. It's our emotions. I don't have to
Yeah.
drink over it. It's just part of what happens in life. We
And I think the
obsess.
key. No,
Go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was going to say, I think the key is not fighting it. Because the
Yeah.
more you fight something, the worse it gets. Like I always tell my kids, if you have a headache and you scrunch your face up and you try to fight your headache, it's going to get worse. But if you just sit there and you're like, whatever, I got a headache, I'm just going to have some water or some tea and watch TV or whatever, it'll start to subside. And I find that a lot of our problems have to do with fighting uncomfortable emotions instead of just letting them be. What would it be like if you just let them be? Yeah, well, you know what? I'm sad. Yeah, someone passed away. I'm sad. Big deal. That's what's going to happen, and that's okay. And you embrace it, and instead of fighting it. And unfortunately, in a lot of cultures today, we fight emotions. We're like, let's get it out of there. Let's do this. We got to be strong, and we got to be this way. And it's like, no, you don't. I can be strong against alcohol, and I can be strong about the things that I want. And if someone comes up to, rough me up, I could try to be strong. But as far as emotions, we don't need to be afraid of them. Those are just chemical impulses designed to protect us. And sometimes they get all haywire. Like if you're a kid and you grew up with trauma or abuse or whatever it is, um, those emotions are going to come in more often. Why? Because they need to protect you. And what you do is you say, thanks for sharing. That's okay. I don't need to worry about, fighting it. It's going to be okay. Like, I'm going to be okay. And the problem with alcoholics is we want to feel better immediately because we're constantly trying to fight these feelings. And when you give up and you say, you know what, I'm not going to fight it anymore. It's just a feeling. It won't kill me. Going to the bar and driving drunk and being an alcoholic, yeah, that'll probably kill me. But the feelings won't. Probably not going to. Maybe I could do something else. Or like anxiety. I learned for years I had drank regular coffee, and I didn't realize that was a big source of my anxiety. Like it would just boom off to the races. And when I got sober, about 2 years after I got sober, I'm like, I wonder what's going to happen if I don't drink coffee. Switched to decaf. Noticed that my speech slowed down, my anxiety slowed down. Wasn't a big deal. Also, I noticed that feelings happen because of thoughts, right? Like the example we used earlier, where the guy watches the news and he gets all depressed and thinks the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Yeah, well, that's because you're watching that. And the news only reports the bad stuff because that's what sells. They don't report the good stuff, right? There's lots of good stuff going on. And if you don't find good stuff, go create good stuff. You can do that. But you can sit with it and you could look at obsession. Like I have OCD, and like last night, I knew I shut my heater off in the office, but I got to come check anyway. I got to check. I'm like, I know it. I remember it. I unplugged it. I put the little plug on the thing, and I was good. But I checked anyway. And I'm like, whatever. Dog needs to pee anyway. I'll have a cigar, walk out there, even though it's like 32 degrees out. Whatever. It's cool. I'll just check it.
I thought
Shut
you
my
lived
brain
in
up.
Florida.
I know it's like 30 this week. It's been cold. So
Right on. Charmin, you said I am an alcoholic by heredity, and I have been an alcoholic for 20 years, and it's an obsession of the brain. And yeah, for me, yeah, me too. Dad's an alcoholic, brother's an alcoholic. and I'm an alcoholic. So yeah, I guess I am by heredity. My mom, her addiction was food, but doesn't matter for
Mm-hmm.
me. I'm just I choose to be sober now. My brother's sober, my dad's sober, and that's what we've done. And yeah, we had to go through some stuff, but it's okay. And I know a lot of people. I work with a lot of people that uh, alcoholism is in every part of their family, and some people, the alcoholic gang, all that stuff, illegal activities is in their family, and they're able to get sober and stay sober.
Mm-hmm.
We can all do it. Just some of us don't make it though. It's a fact, but
Mm-hmm.
we can get sober. So just remember that if you're having trouble, keep on trying.
Absolutely. And focus on what works. Focus on what works for you. Focus on each day, each hour, each minute. What am I going to do right now? What am I going to do here? How am I going to protect myself if something bad happens? What if my anxiety does get off the chart? What if I have to go somewhere where I'm going to be anxious? What do I do about that? And you set up these safeguards, and then all of a sudden you're going to do this long enough, and it'll be like I remember the first time I was like, huh, forgot to think about drinking today. That was weird. I didn't even think about it. That was cool, right? And those days will come more and more and more as time goes on.
Tony says, "Hi lads, have you ever been part of a couple who drink? Me and my partner drink, and when I'm quitting, she's not, and vice versa. We blame each other for failing to stay sober. It's a nightmare. Yeah, that can be definitely a difficult thing. Um, my spouse has a drink, but just here and there. And when I first got sober, she was supportive, and she didn't have any alcohol around at all for me to that would tempt me. And it was actually me that said, "It's okay now. I'm good. You can have it." But
And
no, go. That's all right. Go ahead.
Tony, what I would do also is clearly you want to stay sober. You're here. You that's like your goal. What I would do if I were you is I would try to stay sober as much as you can right now, and then next time she jumps on the bandwagon, jump on it with her, like continue with her and be like, okay, let's do this. Maybe get to meetings, maybe find other couples that are staying sober as well. And really go all out and be like, we're not going to have alcohol in the house, we're not going to get it there, because the funny thing about that is you could either have the worst curse by having a spouse that is struggling with it too, or the biggest blessing.
Yep.
And if it's a big blessing, you guys could be like, oh shit, man, we're going to stay sober together. Someone who gets it, someone who knows what it's like. And the best thing you could do is be empathetic and understand what it's like and be like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And if they're in the same place as you, which it sounds like sometimes they are, remember that. Remember the things we teach you about the built in forgetter and remind her, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to go back to drinking again. Yeah, remember that time it really sucked and didn't work out? Yeah, remember that? That really sucked and it didn't work out. So what makes you think it's going to do better this time? Come on, let's go do this instead. And when we look at that, we really, really focus and we're like, okay, we're going to be all right. We're going to focus on climbing the hill and being sober and going against the grain. And you guys could have an awesome, awesome thing there, which is really cool. And then you could deal with stuff like right now. I go to counseling with my spouse because we got stuff we're dealing with. No surprise, alcoholics have emotions to deal with, right? And I have those issues. She's not an alcoholic, I am. And, it's hard work, but I'm like, hey, this could be a good thing. This could be good.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work out as planned, remember that the root of all suffering is desire. I desire things to be different. That's why I'm suffering. That's it, right? So if I desired things to be different, like for years I desired my relationship to be different, but I didn't do anything about it. So I was miserable. But now I'm like, I desire it to be different, and if it doesn't turn out that way, that's okay. But I'm going to do what I can do to make it good. Same thing with alcoholism. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I don't know what's going to happen. I could relapse when I'm 68 years old. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what life's going to bring? But right now I'm doing this. And when we look at desire, we desire to have no anxiety. We desire to have no fear. What if you just desired to be okay with where you're at right now? What if that was your desire? I'm okay. And I desire to not drink because I know that's going to make things worse. And it's okay sometimes. Trevelyan says, my spouse and I got sober together. Best support ever. Exactly.
Yeah,
All
my,
right.
my difficult part in that situation, my previous marriage, was my spouse and I would decide to quit drinking, but she was not an alcoholic, so she could quit. And I had that compulsion constantly. And so then I had to do what Anna, what you had just mentioned. I'm a closet drinker. That's what I ended up doing. And, I'd venture to say that the majority of the alcoholics eventually become closet drinkers because you got to hide it so that nobody calls you on it and makes you quit. And that was me, definitely. But yeah, that was a challenge.
It's me says, I watched your video on 20 things. All were the same as what I thought. My drinkings is to fill time, boredom, getting to the next day quicker, so I'm at work. Yeah, and you just look at it and you're like, I can find 1,000 reasons not to drink, you know, and we can focus on that. And we can be like, okay, we're going to be all right. It's going to work out. Cool.
Right on.
All right. Any last minute questions or desires or thoughts or anything you need to share? Let us know. Also, make sure that you subscribe, click the bell, give us lots of thumbs up so that this video goes out to lots of more people. And make sure that you join our Facebook group. And also, if you want to support the show, go to talksober.com, click on the support button, and support the work we're doing here. We do have a lot of costs as far as camera equipment and different things. Luckily, I have another business where I do similar stuff, so most of it is through that. But right now we are running at a loss. So if you do want to help us get the word out and do everything, that would be good. You can go to talksober.com, click on support the show. And in addition, we'll give you a bunch of notes, a bunch of MP3s of our talks. And also, we are starting live weekly calls where you can hop on and talk about more personal stuff that's bothering you and go through the hard work of what it takes to get sober. And we kind of help you with that as well. And that's at talksober.com.
Talksober.com.
All right, guys. Any last minute thoughts from Terry?
Well, I think as far as forgetting to drink alcohol, it's a change in your habits, change in what you do. When you first get sober, you have to um, do everything you possibly can. Yes, you're thinking about alcohol constantly. You just have to start to change those pathways in your brain to get your mind to start to shift to not alcohol not being an issue. And as sobriety continues, continue on that until it becomes a habit. And then after that's become a habit, then it eventually becomes a way of life. And that's what it is for me. Is sobriety is a way of life for me, and it's what I strive for every day because life is incredible. Being sober, it's great. I love it. I don't have any issues, any worries about, or any even thoughts about alcohol. It's not an issue anymore. But I do have to work on that sobriety. But anyways, thanks everybody. Really great seeing you all here.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining. Stay sober, and we'll see you next week. Check out talksober.com. Help us out. Get some of the letters. Check out our cool stuff, and we'll see you next time.